When we usually think about creating something, like anything really, a painting, a building, or even just forming a new thought, we naturally pictures starting with a blank canvas.
Right, an empty void.
Yeah, exactly. We think of creation as addition, like you start with zero,
Mm.
and through some kind of effort you create a one. But the text you're diving into today throws that fundamental assumption completely out the window.
It really does. It's a beautiful, almost, well, a startling inversion of our normal logic.
It argues that creation isn't making a one out of a zero. It says creation is subtraction.
And that's the core premise of the excerpts we're analyzing today from a book called You Are Me, the Book of Existence. Specifically, we're looking at its prologue and a chapter called Metaphysics of Creation.
Right, and it's such a wild concept to wrap your head around.
It is. The idea is that existence emerges by chiseling away infinite potential until, a single distinct form remains. Think of a sculptor carving a statue from a massive block of marble.
You don't build this statue for nothing.
Exactly. You subtract the stone until the reality of the shape is revealed. So boundaries are what actually create reality.
And what's so fascinating about this text, to me at least, is that it doesn't try to fit neatly into one section of the bookstore. Like, it explicitly states it isn't strictly science, nor is it just religion or philosophy or spirituality.
Right. It's attempting this massive synthesis of all four. It actually describes itself as a seed for a new, unified worldview.
But it doesn't demand, worship or blind belief or anything like that. It essentially says, here is a model of reality. Now go test it, live it, and see if it holds up.
Which is exactly what we're going to do on this deep dive today. We are going to deconstruct the very fabric of reality using this model.
Oh, already.
We're looking at why there is something rather than nothing and how every single one of us is intimately, physically and consciously connected to the universe.
But to understand how this reality is being carved, as you put it with a marble analogy,
Mm-hmm.
we really have to ask the most fundamental question first, like who or what is actually doing the carving?
Right. And to answer that, the text takes us way down the rabbit hole of cause and effect. Because when we look around, absolutely everything has a cause.
You drop a glass, it breaks.
Yeah, the cause is gravity and your clumsy hands, and the effect is broken glass. But people always ask, well, what about randomness? What about a coin flip?
Okay, let's unpack this part, because the text makes a really compelling argument here, that what we call randomness isn't actually random at all. It's literally just our human inability to identify all the, millions of microscopic causes at play.
Precisely. If you had a computer powerful enough to track the exact force of your thumb, the wind resistance, the microscopic grooves on the coin, you could predict every single random coin flip perfectly.
It's all just math.
Right. So if we agree that there's no true randomness and everything has a cause, you run into a philosophical wall when you trace that chain backward.
Because a cause needs a base condition to act upon.
Exactly. If there is absolutely nothing pre-existing, a cause would have to act on itself, which is a paradox. Logically, there must be a first cause.
Something that initiates the very first change without needing a prior physical trigger.
Right.
And here is where the logic gets really tight for me. The text asserts that nothing cannot exist without something. You can't even have the concept of an empty void without a framework for that void to exist within.
It's a great point.
So what could possibly exist without a prior cause, and critically, without physical space to sit in? The text concludes the only possible answer is pure consciousness.
Yes, because any non-conscious entity, any physical thing, whether it's a quantum particle or a planet, requires space and time to exist.
It'd have to have a location.
Exactly. If the first cause created space and time, it cannot be made of physical matter. Therefore, consciousness doesn't need a location. It is the location.
Wow.
It is the first observer. And by observing, it becomes the first creator. But to understand this, the text asks us to completely reconsider what space actually is. It argues that space is not a physical container.
It's a mental division, right, in consciousness. Basically, it's an illusion.
Yeah.
I have to admit, though, I struggle with that word illusion. Because I'm looking around this room right now, and the distance between me and the wall feels incredibly real.
Sure, it does.
Like, if I want to touch that wall, I have to physically get up, expend energy, and cross that distance. How can space just be a mental division?
It's a completely fair objection.
Huh.
But the text explains that realness using a framework that maps perfectly onto modern technology. Think of a massively multiplayer virtual reality simulation.
Okay.
At its most fundamental level, what is a VR world? It's just layers of binary information, zeros and ones, stored on a drive and processed by a computing engine.
Right, so there's no actual physical distance between two players in a VR game. It's literally just math dictating how long it takes an avatar to move from coordinate A to coordinate B.
Exactly. The machine interface, the environment, the physics engine governing how fast you can run, it's all just stacked layers of information.
Just code.
Right. But none of those zeros and ones mean anything. They don't look like a world until a conscious mind puts on the headset and perceives the digital space.
Oh, I see. The text argues our physical reality operates the exact same way. The primal consciousness divides itself. One part becomes the generating mind that provides the code of space and time, and another part becomes the perceiving consciousness, us, experiencing it from the inside.
So space is simply consciousness manifesting its unmanifested form. It feels real because the rules of the simulation dictate that it must feel real to the observer.
Precisely.
Okay, so space and time are basically the software operating system of this cosmic simulation. But if that's true, what are the actual rules written into this software? Like, how does the sandbox operate?
The text breaks down the framework for this creation into three foundational components. In Eastern mysticism, this is referred to as prakriti, or in Western philosophical terms, the underlying spirit of nature.
Okay.
These three components are called tamas, rajas, and sattva.
Okay, let's translate those into the physics of our universe, just to ground it. Tamas represents space, or rest. It just exists. It has no activity other than providing a location for things to happen.
Then you have rajas, which represents time. That's the continuous, unstoppable movement without rest, providing the sequence for events to unfold.
Exactly.
And then there is sattva,
Okay.
which the text equates to the principle of balance, or in scientific terms, entropy.
Yes, and this is where the text asks us to completely reevaluate our relationship with the laws of physics.
Well, hold on, let's pause right here, because here's where it gets really interesting, and I need to push back on this a bit.
Go for it.
You're saying sattva is the principle of balance, but it equates to entropy. That makes zero intuitive sense to me.
Why not?
Well, when I hear the word entropy, I think of chaos. I think of decay. Like, it's the reason my hot coffee gets cold if I leave it on the counter, and it's the reason my car will eventually rust into a pile of dust. How is the universe winding down and falling apart supposed to be balanced?
See, what's fascinating here is that is exactly the human bias the text is trying to dismantle.
My bias against cold coffee.
Right, exactly. You view your coffee getting cold as decay, but what is actually happening physically, the heat energy in the coffee is fiercely concentrated.
Okay.
The universe doesn't like that imbalance. Entropy is the underlying law that continuously moves all energy toward uniform distribution. It wants the coffee in the room to be the exact same temperature.
Oh, it wants thermal equilibrium.
Yes, it wants sameness.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate balance. Entropy is the universe trying to return to a state of absolute rest.
So decay is really just a subjective human judgment on the universe trying to flatten itself out. We just happen to like the structure of a hot coffee or a shiny car, so we get mad when the universe tries to dismantle them.
Precisely. Now imagine a universe without entropy. Imagine if you built a sandcastle on the beach, and the wind and water never eroded it.
Yeah.
It just stayed mathematically perfect forever.
I mean, honestly, as someone tired of doing home repairs, a world without decay sounds pretty fantastic.
It sounds great until you realize it would completely stifle all motivation and creativity.
How so?
If things remained perfect forever, if structure required no maintenance and energy never dissipated, there would be no reason to ever take action. Entropy provides the necessary friction of reality.
It provides the space for free will to operate.
Yes, by constantly pulling things toward disorder and equilibrium, entropy creates the vital space for free will to actually matter.
Ah, I see. It's like gravity in a platformer video game.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Right. If your character could just float effortlessly anywhere on the screen, there's no game. It's boring. The gravity, that constant downward pull, forces you to jump, to build stairs, to strategize. It forces you to actually play.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The text states that every conscious effort we make to create order, whether it's building a house, composing a symphony, or even just cleaning your kitchen, is a deliberate act of free will pushing back against the natural flow of entropy.
Because without that constant friction, the entire purpose of the universe, which the text calls the actualization of potential, simply couldn't happen. Entropy is the canvas that demands we paint on it. All right, I buy the video game analogy. I buy that entropy provides the friction that makes free will meaningful. But in a video game, the gravity and the friction are just lines of code.
Hmm.
In our universe, if everything is fundamentally just pure consciousness, where does the actual physical stuff come from?
Right, the matter itself.
Yeah, what are the atoms, the dirt, the literal marble we are carving actually made of?
This is where the text tackles the mechanics of matter. Modern physics has done an incredible job tracing matter down to its smallest possible parts. We know that molecules are made of atoms, atoms are made of subatomic particles.
And those particles, when you look closely enough, are essentially just localized vibrations in quantum fields, right? Everything is vibrating energy.
Right. String theory, quantum field theory. Solid matter is mostly just empty space and vibrating energy. But the text points out a massive, crucial blind spot in modern science.
Which is,
When you ask a physicist why the quantum fields vibrate in the first place, science eventually goes silent.
they don't know.
They can track the mechanics, they can measure the frequency, but the ultimate why is a mystery. The standard answer is simply, well, the universe is just structured this way.
But this text doesn't accept, it just is. It proposes an answer, and it introduces a concept called the frozon, F-R-O-Z-O-N, which stands for frozen consciousness.
Think about the logical progression here. If the first cause is consciousness, and the only material available at the dawn of creation is consciousness, then energy and matter must be made of it.
So the text suggests that the fundamental unit of creation, this frozon, is a converted unit of consciousness.
Yes.
And this is a slightly terrifying, but also incredibly unifying way to look at the space around us. Because it means space and matter are just consciousness acting dead.
Right.
Like, if you are listening to this on your morning commute, the text is arguing that the plastic steering wheel in your hands is quite literally made of frozen consciousness.
Which is a lot to take in.
It is. Let me try an analogy. Imagine the most brilliant, expressive actor in the world. They have infinite potential to perform any role, speak any line, feel any emotion.
Okay.
But for the sake of an upcoming play, this actor willingly chooses to walk on stage and play the role of a rock or a wall. They completely abandon their own free will, their own ability to move independently, just so the main characters, our individual souls, have a stage to perform on.
That perfectly captures what the frozen is doing. The text calls it intelligent energy. It voluntarily changes its basic nature from being a subjective observer with free will to becoming an objective, rule-based building block.
It has no motive of its own anymore.
None, other than providing the harmony and structure for creation to take place.
But how does a frozen piece of consciousness actually generate the physical elements? Like, how do we get from an actor playing a rock to actual fire or water or earth?
This brings us to the concept of the blinking focus of the primal consciousness. Yeah. How do you create complexity from a single, unified source? By oscillating awareness. Imagine you were in a pitch-black room with a strobe light.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When the strobe light is off, there is nothing, a void. When it flashes on, you see the room. If that strobe light flashes incredibly fast, your brain stitches those flashes together into the illusion of continuous reality.
So the text argues the primal consciousness operates similarly.
Yes. It creates by focusing its awareness and then withdrawing it over and over at an incomprehensible speed.
Like a cosmic watchman blinking. And reality only exists in the fraction of a second that the eye is open.
Precisely. And that blinking, that pulsating focus of awareness coming and going, is what creates frequency. From this foundational frequency, the text says we get the 5 fundamental elements. But we have to redefine what those words mean. They aren't physical dirt or actual flames.
They are fundamental concepts of movement playing out in this cosmic mind.
Exactly. First, you have space, which is simply the concept of the possibility of movement. You need a void to move into.
All right.
Then you have air, which represents the concept of movement itself. Once you have movement, it has to go somewhere. So fire represents centrifugal movement, energy expanding radially outward, like heat radiating from a star.
Okay, and water?
Water represents the exact opposite, centripetal movement, energy collapsing inward, like magnetism or gravity pulling things together. And finally, earth. Earth is the concept of absolute balance between those expanding and contracting forces.
And that balance is what creates form. It creates density. It creates physical matter. So a rock on the ground isn't just a dumb cluster of atoms. It is a perfectly balanced conceptual tug-of-war between expanding and contracting consciousness, vibrating at a specific frequency generated by a cosmic strobe light.
I know it sounds wild when you summarize it like that, but logically it's incredibly elegant.
It really is. And what's remarkable is how this framework scales perfectly, from the microscopic unit of the frozen all the way up to the macroscopic structure of the entire universe.
Which brings us to the grand architecture of reality.
Right. If a rock is a conceptual tug-of-war vibrating under a strobe light, how does that scale up into a universe? The text provides a visual map to explain this, outlining what it calls the 10 levels of existence.
Right. And instead of just reading them off, let's actually build this universe level by level because it shows exactly how these concepts stack to create our reality.
Let's do it. Level 1 is the absolute simplest concept, a dimensionless point.
Yeah.
A coordinate. It has no height, no width, no depth. By itself, it's essentially nothing.
Right. But the moment that single point moves, it leaves a trail. That trail is level 2, a line.
Okay.
Suddenly you have the concept of direction.
And if you take that line and drag it sideways, you create level 3, a plane. 2 dimensions. You have surface area. Now drag that flat plane upward, and you create level 4, space. You finally have a 3-dimensional container.
But a 3D container is just a frozen snapshot. Nothing can happen inside it without sequence. So level 5 introduces time, creating the space-time continuum. Now we have our 4D sandbox.
But a sandbox needs action. It needs events.
Which brings us to level 6, the storyline. This is the realm of choices, scenarios, and event horizons. It is the realm where free will operates, but choices cannot be arbitrary. They need consequences. So level 7 introduces the law set.
Right. These are the physical, mathematical, and cosmic laws that govern how choices play out in the sandbox.
Exactly. And all those laws and choices interacting give us level 8, potentiality, the entire mind-boggling matrix of cause and effect, every action and reaction mapped out.
Which leads to level 9, knowledge, the ability to perceive that matrix through facts, imagination, memory, feeling, and realization.
And finally, all of that architecture, from the dimensionless point to the vastness of knowledge, culminates in level 10, pure consciousness, the ultimate awareness of all that is.
But here is the brilliant twist the text throws at us. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The text states, the journey outward creates the universe. The journey inward reveals the self. We just built the universe outward. But if you walk that path backward from consciousness, past knowledge, past space and time, right down to the singular point, you find the author of this book.
And the author is listed simply as you.
You.
Oh.
Listener, me, everyone. There's a poem right at the beginning of the text that perfectly captures this realization. It says, in silent void, no time, no sound, only you the one aware. To be was truth, to not was lie, so you became the knowing I.
It's beautiful. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound takeaway here is that the primal consciousness, that first cause we talked about, divided itself for a very specific reason.
It explored duality.
Yes, it wanted to experience relationships. It wanted to actualize its own infinite potential. But you cannot experience a relationship if you are a solitary infinite singularity. You can't know what hot is without cold. You can't know love without other.
It had to carve the marble. It had to use subtraction to create boundaries.
Exactly, it had to create boundaries. So it divided itself into the frozen to build the physical stage. It instituted entropy to provide the friction necessary for growth. And it fragmented its own awareness into billions of unique perspectives.
So every person, every soul, every single listener tuning into this deep dive right now is a unique, vital perspective of that one singular consciousness experiencing its own creation.
Yes.
You are me, I am you, this is true. That's the core thesis. We are quite literally the universe experiencing itself, built out of parts of ourselves that volunteered to act as the scenery.
It completely dissolves the illusion of separateness, the physical boundaries between us, the space in this room. It's all just the necessary software rules of the game to allow for relationships to exist.
Man, we've covered an immense amount of ground today. We started by completely inverting our idea of creation, realizing that existence is a process of subtraction, of carving boundaries into infinite potential.
We looked at reality as a cosmic VR simulation, where space and time are mental constructs, and where entropy isn't decay, but the essential friction, the gravity of the sandbox, that makes free will meaningful.
And we explored the mechanics of matter through the frozen, understanding that energy is just consciousness blinking in and out of focus, all of it stacking up through the 10 levels of existence to reveal that the YU listening right now is the ultimate author of this entire reality.
Which leaves us with a final, unavoidable question.
Oh, let's hear it.
If this text is right, every empty space in your room and every inanimate object you touched today, your phone, your coffee cup, the steering wheel of your car, is made of frozen consciousness.
Yeah.
It is a part of the grand whole that voluntarily gave up its own freedom just to give you a stage to exercise your free will. How does that change the way you interact with the most mundane objects around you today when you realize the scenery itself is a sacrifice made for your experience?
That is a staggering thought, knowing that the ground you walk on gave up its ability to walk just so you could. Well, thank you for bringing such profound sources to the table today.
It's been a pleasure.
To our listeners, keep exploring these ideas, test them in your own life, and see how they shift your perspective on the space around you. Keep questioning, keep carving that marble, and we will see you on the next deep dive.